My fiancée doesn't want to introduce me to her friends or interact with them until after we are married. Posted by you/ambitiousfinish879. So, my fiancée, 32F, doesn't want me, 28M, to talk to her best friends at all before marriage. We have been dating for the last 2.5 years, and those 2.5 years have been mostly public. Public in the sense that both she and I like to post pictures or reels of ourselves from vacations or time spent together, and we were very clear about our relationship on Instagram. However, she doesn't have many real-life followers from her office or personal life on Instagram. She has around 7 or 8 really close friends whom she meets regularly and one cousin. We are both mature adults and decided to get married in the coming year, in November or December 2024, since we started dating. So, I thought it would be better to introduce her to my family as well. Last month, after getting her consent, I arranged a meeting with my family at a nice restaurant in the city. My family met her, liked her, and decided to fix a date for our wedding. However, my fiancée said it would be too soon for her to get married this year, so we eventually decided to set the wedding date for February 2025, 6 months from now. In my city, it is usually necessary to book wedding halls well in advance to secure a good venue. So, with her consent, I discussed it with my family and booked a hall for our wedding. A few days later, she also went ahead and booked a hall for her side of the celebration. It is normal in our culture to have separate celebrations from both the bride's and groom's sides. So far, I have introduced her to my family and one female friend of mine who lives in a different town with her boyfriend. Both meetings were well planned. She also accidentally met another friend of mine once in a mall. However, I have never formally met any of her friends, except for 1 or 2 accidental encounters. For example, once, I was driving my fiancée somewhere, and 2 or 3 of her friends hopped into the car, and we exchanged a few words as we traveled. Her friends were, of course, aware that we were dating. Now, a strange incident happened last week that left me really confused. I received a text from one of her friends on Instagram. Before this, I had never spoken to this friend except once, a year ago, when my fiancée wasn't talking to me due to a fight. At that time, I texted her friend politely, asking her to talk to my fiancée, as she was a good friend and might be able to help. She agreed to talk to her. I only messaged her friend because I felt my fiancée was going through a lot. She had a huge financial loan, was dealing with family issues, and was also upset with me. Shortly after, my fiancée called me angrily about DMing her friend on Instagram and told me never to talk to her again. I was surprised but complied, as our relationship wasn't very stable back then, and I wanted to give her space. Later that day, I received a message from her friend saying, "Hey, sorry, I can't help you with this," and then she blocked me on Instagram. I didn't react and just let it go. Now, last week, this same friend suddenly texted me because she couldn't reach my fiancée over the phone and was worried about what was going on. I politely replied, saying, "Hey, she's probably busy with work. I'll let her know that you're trying to reach her." I then called my fiancée and informed her. Her reaction was, "Oh Lord, why does she have to text you? Please block her on Instagram." I found this reaction quite immature and weird, so I told her I wouldn't block her. My fiancée then said, "If you won't, then she will." A few moments later, I saw that her friend had blocked me again on Instagram. This time, I felt a little angry and ended up messaging her on her other Instagram handle. I said, "Hey, how are you doing? I didn't like what you just did, and this is not a very respectable way to treat someone." I also wrote, "If your husband has any self-respect, he shouldn't text my fiancée when you two are having issues either." She responded, saying, "Me and my husband have been in her life long before you came into it." I politely explained that I never intended to interfere with their friendship, only to strengthen their bond, and that I felt disrespected for being blocked twice when I simply wanted to communicate or get to know them. She didn't reply to this but informed my fiancée, who once again became very angry with me, particularly because I had mentioned her friend's husband. I felt that was the only logical way to express myself. I am serious about my relationship with her. I introduced her to my family and friends. She doesn't have many family members, her parents passed away, and her cousins live abroad or far away, so her friends will be the ones present at our wedding from her side. I expected her to take me more seriously and at least not ask her friends to block me on Instagram. She often visits this female friend's house, has sleepovers, and attends parties there with her husband and other friends for birthdays or other events. I have never had the opportunity to formally meet her friends. I have expressed to her a couple of times that since her friend's husband sometimes joins their group meetings with their baby, maybe I could also join once. However, she is strictly against this, and after this blocking incident, I am seriously bothered. My fiancée says, "My ex-boyfriends used to bother my friends too, and I don't want that happening again." This reasoning might have made sense a year ago, but now that we're getting married in 6 months, she is still hesitant. She says she will introduce me to them only after marriage. However, since her friends will likely be helping with the wedding arrangements on her side, I felt the need to communicate with them as well. I haven't spoken to my fiancée in the last 2 days because of this, and now she's saying she is unsure about the marriage, claiming that my desire to meet her friends suggests I will be controlling in the future. I feel like she will text or call me soon. Am I asking for too much by wanting to meet her friends? What should I do? Update 1 month 1 week later. Some time ago, I, 28M, posted about how my fiancée, 32F, asked one of her best friends to block me on Instagram. It hasn't been long since that incident, but today, I was surprised to learn that my fiancée's mother, whom she has always referred to as dead, is actually alive. A few weeks ago, her best friend, who is already married with 1 child, texted me to ask about my fiancée's whereabouts since she hadn't been able to reach her. When my fiancée found out, she immediately asked me to block her, but I refused. Instead, she made that best friend block me, and the rest of the story is already in my previous post. Since then, I have struggled to trust her. My fiancée has always told me that she has no family. She claimed to be an only child and said both her parents had passed away. She used to visit her countryside home every 3 to 4 months, saying she was going to see her aunt, who she claimed was the only person living there. However, something always seemed a little off. Every time she went, she would stay for at least 2 to 3 days. Other things seemed suspicious too. Whenever she received a phone call, the contact name would show as Dad Home, but a woman would always answer, whom she referred to as her aunt. My fiancée has already met my parents, and we were supposed to get married this coming February. However, my parents were hesitant about our marriage because they didn't like the secrecy and were also concerned about her making her best friend block me. I assumed it was just a generational difference and tried to convince my parents that it wasn't a big deal. Still, my parents didn't feel comfortable with the relationship. Last week, they went near my fiancée's office and asked one of her colleagues if she knew anything about her family. However, the colleague didn't know much. I know what my parents did wasn't right, but perhaps they saw the situation from an outsider's perspective and just wanted to protect me. Later, I told them it was inappropriate to bring these matters into a professional space. They agreed not to do it again but urged me to do proper research before moving forward with the marriage. This made me reflect on their concerns from an outsider's perspective, and I started feeling increasingly uneasy about everything. My fiancée never let me talk to or follow any of her friends or relatives on social media. She said the reason she wouldn't introduce me to her family was that they wouldn't approve of an inter-caste or inter-community marriage, as such unions are still not widely accepted in some parts of India. However, she always claimed her parents were open-minded and that she was raised in a modern household. She would criticize my family for being suspicious and backward and even said that if her parents were alive, they would have definitely supported our marriage. Initially, my parents liked my fiancée when they first met her and were happy about the marriage. My father even offered to cover the wedding expenses for her side since she wasn't doing well financially. However, their suspicions grew when she made her best friend block me. All of these things combined made me very suspicious, so today, I decided to visit her countryside home just to check. I went there pretending to be looking for someone else, and when I knocked on the door, her mother answered. I immediately recognized her because my fiancé had shown me photos of her before. It was like seeing a ghost. She looked perfectly fine, smiling, and bearing a strong resemblance to my fiancé. My fiancé and I have barely spoken since the day my parents went to her office. She called my parents crazy for what they did and said that people from my community are cunning and suspicious, constantly spying on others. However, she never acknowledged the fact that she had told such a massive lie to my family. While I admitted that my parents were wrong to inquire about her at her workplace, I also felt that it was unfair for her to speak about my family that way, especially when she had been acting so suspiciously, making people block me and faking her mother's death. I haven't confronted her about this yet, and I don't know what to make of it. This is a huge lie, and I can't think of any valid reason for it. Her mother looked completely fine, around 50 to 60 years old. From what I confirmed from locals nearby, her father had actually passed away, but her mother was living there with her aunt, who lived in a different house just on the adjacent block. I just want to know if there could be any valid reason for this because I honestly can't think of one. Relevant comments. Commenter. Start working on getting out of the false grape case, segs on the promise of marriage. Talk to a lawyer and gather solid evidence. Do not marry her under any circumstances. Ops response. Yeah, my friend, even I thought about these things when I first found out her mother was alive. I am Bengali, and she is Assamese. My girlfriend is very confusing at times. She has good sides too, like her love for animals, but she also harbors hatred toward Bengalis. I was always scared of that side of her and never really knew what to do. When I look back, I remember very fond memories of us together, you know. She was a huge fan of animals and always rescued injured ones. She has an injured pigeon, an injured cat, and 6 birds in her apartment right now. This paradox is killing me with doubt on the inside. She had very good sides to her, but also very suspicious and quite scary ones. There are terrorist outfits in Assam, and I'm scared. What if she was even a part of one? Although I never got any proof of it. I really don't know. One of her friends, a couple friend, was also linked to taking people's money in the name of high returns and not returning it. That friend once took some of my girlfriend's money as well and didn't return it. My girlfriend told me they had a bad fight and didn't talk for a year, but just 2 months ago, she suddenly started talking to that friend again. So these things are quite suspicious. The logical side of my brain is telling me that just because she liked animals doesn't mean she loved me. She used to say how good the dog was, it stayed the way she kept it and never complained like humans. But then I told her, that's because it's a dog, not a human. Humans will always have their own likes and dislikes. I explained this to her very gently, but she just said, yes, that's true, but I like animals the most. I don't know exactly. Who is she? Second update 1 month later. So, it's been about a month since I posted my question about my fiancée's strange behavior and her lie about her mother being dead. Today, I thought I'd share a small update on the situation because many of you have been asking for it. After discovering that her mother was still alive, I was in shock for a few days. But gradually, I started to feel better, though I was still eager to understand if I had done anything wrong, especially because I had seen both the good and bad sides of her. Now that some time has passed and I can think more clearly, though I do miss her at times, I reflect on what I know about her. She is naturally very compassionate and has shown great kindness toward animals, adopting or helping several stray animals during the 3 years we were together. I've seen her experience happiness, sadness, and vulnerability. I've seen her good side, but she has also been very harsh in her feelings toward my community, language, my parents, and even me. She clearly did things that were wrong, like discouraging interaction with her friends and lying about her mother being dead, among other things. She also lied to me another time in the past, which I consider the second biggest lie after the story about her mother's death. This happened one night when she arrived in my city a day earlier than planned from her village home. I found out because I had been calling her repeatedly. She said she wanted to surprise me, but we didn't end up meeting that day because she asked me not to come over, claiming she was tired and feeling unwell. Later that night, I called her multiple times, but she didn't pick up. The next morning, I went to her flat and discovered she wasn't there. A few hours later, she called me from a friend's phone and explained that she had gone to her friend's house because her friend's boyfriend had come to stay, and the watchman wouldn't allow another guy in the flat. So, they pretended to be family relatives to cover it up. I forgave her for lying that time and chose to trust her again. In hindsight, it was another significant lie, the second biggest in our entire relationship, with the fake story about her mother's death still being the first. About 7 or 8 days ago, I noticed her repeatedly posting WhatsApp updates about how badly I treated her, how she was subjected to loneliness, and how I broke up with her. During that time, I attended a party with some guys and girls, and I saw her posting stories that directly defamed me, even though we had already broken up and I had every right to socialize with whomever I wanted. That day, I messaged her after seeing her status updates, partly because I was angry about what she had posted and partly because I wanted to know the real reason behind her lie about her mother's death. She responded with a lengthy message, but to summarize, she listed the following reasons. 1. She said she lied about her mother being dead because her mother never received the respect she deserved in her past relationship. Her ex probably never let her stay at her mother's village house for more than 2 days. 2. Her ex-boyfriend was roaming around the city with other girls and probably even cheated on her while her mother was in the hospital. 3. She thought her mother would receive proper respect if she lied about her being dead, just like her late father, who, according to her, was treated respectfully after his passing. None of the reasons she gave seemed serious enough for me to believe. I pointed out that about 90% of her reasons were related to her ex-boyfriend and asked why she had to lie about her mother, especially since I had always been supportive of her family issues. I told her that her explanations didn't make any sense to me at all. She later told me I was wrong to say she has narcissistic personality disorder. I had told her that once before because she never feels sorry and uses gaslighting to hide her mistakes. I read online that these could be symptoms of NPD and suggested she seek expert help. She said she had consulted a psychologist who diagnosed her with CPTSD, which can sometimes cause narcissistic traits. Even so, I don't see how that justifies creating such a complex story about her mother to deceive both me and my parents, even going as far as to give a specific date for her mother's death anniversary. She was also upset with my parents because they found the whole situation suspicious and started asking questions. Although I feel bad and believe she may be dealing with some behavioral disorders, I also suspect there is a deeper, more complex secret, whether it's hers or her family's, that has led to all these lies. In my last conversation with her, I made it clear that, regardless of what she says, we are not in a position to restore the relationship. I don't want to hurt her by doubting her, nor do I want to hurt myself. Trust is something that cannot be rebuilt after everything that's happened, so I asked her to just tell me the truth. However, nothing substantial came from her that I could consider. So, that's the update. I've decided to move on with my life without her, as there's no way forward in this situation. Relevant comments. Commenter. First, I'm so relieved that you cut ties with her. She was not a mentally stable person at all. I'd still like to know the real reason why she never wanted you to meet her friends. She explained about her mother. Excuses are stupid, but why not her friends? Ops response. Last time I spoke to her, she said her mother was the reason she didn't let me meet her friends. Her friends knew her mother was alive, and she was afraid they would tell me.